Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's live. And welcome back to Nikki. I was chatting in the chat, but you know. And thank you, Becky, for the memberships. That was so nice. She already gifted 5 memberships. We haven't even started the live yet. And we got Nikki back. When was the last time that you were here for a live? Has it been that many days? What, 25 did you say? Or is it longer than that? Because it seems like it's been a while. Oh, a recap. Woo, man, that'd be a long recap maybe. We got a ton of new stuff. If it's been, I think you said 45 days or 25. I can't even remember now, but I know it was a while. 42 days. Wow, 42. Okay, I was even off on the number, but 42 days. So, yeah. Wow, yeah, you have so much to catch up on. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if we could do 42 minutes or 42 days worth of a recap. That's so many things have happened. You'll have so much to watch. And the channel has just been growing and growing. So you'll see the growth as we go through. Like as you go through, I have like the live chat so you can always see what people were chatting about in the chat as well. So thank you guys for all being here. Because we do notice when people are not in the chat, we do notice that sometimes we do. We start to notice. Also, I'm going to go ahead and put the link for the membership. If you'd like to join the membership, it'll be in the chat for you guys. We are trying to get to 10,000 Titans over here. So if you guys would like to subscribe to the channel, we'd love to have you. Don't forget to like the channel as you guys are coming in. It does help get more people into the chat to discuss things. So I was going to, so every time I have like a thing, like I have somewhere I'm going to go with like my live, I'm like, I'm going this way in this direction with this live tonight. Something always happens where it's like, nope, no, you're not, Tanya. Also, by the way, happy St. Patty's Day. I don't think I said that to you guys. I said it in the chat, but I didn't say it to everybody. So happy St. Patty's Day. That's why I'm wearing my green. Not like you guys could get me through the screen to pinch me, but I don't want you guys to do that. Hopefully you're all wearing green. Better be. I remember in school, like that whole thing with like the pinching. Don't you dare pinch me. But I think when I was younger, I would like purposely not wear green. Just to get people to not pinch me. Like you try to pinch me, I'm going to come after you. But you know, I got all the workers at the rehab watching your channel, Tanya. Oh, they've been all invested in this, but wouldn't give me updates. Oh my gosh, they wouldn't give you updates. I would be like, I would probably be like giving them some money under the table for some, that would be like my drug of choice. Because like true crime, if I was in a rehab, that's what my drug would be. I would be like, give more true crime. I need more true crime. Because there's just been so much that's come out. Let me see if I can, what date was that? Like, I'm trying to think of the exact date that like how long it's been. Because it was after Bryan Kohberger was arrested. But it wasn't that far after. It doesn't seem like. Let me go ahead and just put this up real quick. That way, if I want to do a poll with you guys, it's all ready and I can do that. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a good old fun live. So what I was saying earlier, what I was going to do was, and what we're still going to do is I was going to open up the panel. We were just going to do an open panel and like that was really it. But then I was like, okay, well, what are we going to talk about if I do an open panel? So, you know, because there is a lot to go over, but I wanted to have like talking points. So then I was on the beautiful world of YouTube and I saw the Daily Mail. I know a lot of people don't really prefer the Daily Mail, but I don't mind the girl that does the Daily Mail, like the senior correspondent. She came out with a video for them over the Idaho 4. And so I thought we would watch that. She did a couple little videos. One of them was a few weeks ago, but I wanted to play that one because there's a picture I want to show you guys. So there's like a method to my madness there. And then the second video, like the first one's like 10 minutes long. The second one's about 15 minutes. And I think it's about 15. No, it's like 11 minutes and it's brand new. It just came out about 4 or 5 hours ago. So it'll be a new video. And then at 9 o'clock tonight, they are, this is where things went sideways. So they are doing, Dan Abrams is doing like a special report, I guess, on the Idaho 4. And NewsNation, they like me, so they don't normally cut my lives off whenever I stream them. So they haven't yet anyway, and we've streamed NewsNation a lot. So I have the TV on, that way it'll remind me when it's 9 o'clock. Plus Vincent will probably text me, so I'll just turn the volume up on my phone. That way, because he'll usually remind me if it comes on and we're talking. Because I figured we can just see what they have to say. Maybe there's something new they have to talk about. I saw like a commercial for it, but it was so fast I couldn't like turn the TV up enough to hear it. So I figured that it's going to be kind of going blind in there. Also, another thing that's come out. If you ever want to see brand new stuff come out, I swear, come to my channel, because I like didn't know I was going to have all this new stuff. Nancy Grace also came out with a new podcast. So I figured we can listen to that tomorrow night or tomorrow day or whatever. But yeah, I was like, oh my Lordy. Oh my Lordy. But thank you for everybody for being here. Hey, everybody in the chat. Hello. I can see there's like so many more people. Summer's in here. I didn't even know that she snuck in here. And then I was wondering, there's Isabel. I didn't know if she was going to be here or not because it was a little bit later. Yeah, do we know if it's a boy or a girl you're having? I can't remember. I don't think we knew. Boy. Talon. Oh, I like that name. Braden, is that the middle name, Braden? I like that. Boy. Oh, you're having a boy. And then the other Nicole had a girl. Oh, look at that. We're have a boy and we have a girl in the group. I love that. Now I'm going to have to make like little Titan onesies or something. That I have to do that. So yeah, so Dane Ambers is going on tonight. He's going to have some people on there. He's going to have the guy from Law and Crime Network, Jesse, Bryan, and then Sierra Gillespie. I don't know who that is, so don't come for me. I don't know who that is though. Oh, hello, Lady Spitfire. She's a new sub and I love the name. I love that name. Well, welcome. We needed a boy. I missed you, Cat's Life. We were talking about you the other day. We were talking about like a lot of people. And we were talking about Tater Tot. And I don't know where Tater Tot's been, but we need to find out. Ever since Teresa said that last night in the chat, I've been wondering. So we got some new people. We love that. Guys, don't be afraid to come in the chat. I always feel like we always have a lot of women, but I love women. I love the women. But I always feel bad. I'm like, the guys can always come in. We don't bite. I don't think we do. I am going to put the link down though, and I'll put the link in the chat if anybody does want to come up on panel. We'll go ahead and start watching the Daily Mail like article, and then if like we'll pause it here and there, and we'll talk about it. So if you guys want to come up, you guys can. You don't have to put your cameras on. That's fine. I don't mind. Just as long as, just make sure you have like a good internet connection. That's all I ask for. No background noise. And then just mute your mic when someone else is talking. Yeah. Hi, Ellie. Hello, everybody. She said, hello, everyone. If you do it before the baby comes, I will make sure. I will have to yeah, that would be so cute. I need a cricket. Is that what they're called? Cricket. Yeah. Okay. Because I used to call it a circuit. The old phone line things. I'm so old. But it's a cricket. But yeah, I need one of those. Vincent calls it something else and it makes me laugh. He tries to give it an even fancier name. So in the first video here that I'm going to show you, it's basically it's a little bit older, but I wanted to show it to you because it has just a couple things that I didn't really notice in it before. I also found this picture that I swear it looks like Bryan Kohberger from the side view. So I wanted to show, and I don't know. My mind's probably messing with me, but I saw this picture back in November or December. Actually, December. So it must have been right after he was arrested. So early January. And I saw this picture, and it's this guy at the student center, and I'm like, that looks like Bryan Kohberger. So I was going to show it to you guys, and I literally the picture just was gone on my computer one day, and I was like, no, and I couldn't find it again. And even when, when they were doing the candlelight vigil and people were saying oh, that was Bryan Kohberger right there. No, that was, and I was like, no, that's not him. I never believed he was there. So either this is that guy from the candlelight vigil that night, or he's got a twin rolling around, or it's him. I don't know, but I'm going to show you the picture after she talks about it. So they didn't find the murder weapon, but they did find his DNA on a button sheath or a button clasp on the knife sheath. Our girl Nikki here, hasn't been here for a while, so we got to get her up to date. And I'll put this in the chat here. And then I'm going to put my headphones on if you guys decide to come up on stream, because sometimes it'll echo. But it's always a good time to learn. Okay, so I'll go ahead and play this, and we'll start playing these for you.
I wanted to come in person to the crime scene on King Road in Moscow, Idaho at night, sort of eerily peaceful at this crime scene. This is an idea of what it would have looked like the night of the murders. The media circus has left. I am the only reporter here right now, and you can hear a pin drop out there.
Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves were brutally stabbed to death in the middle of the night, and we still don't know why. What was the motive? Who was the target? Now, these are some of the biggest unanswered questions in the case of the Idaho Four, and I've waded through all of the information out there about the crime, the victims, and the suspected killer, Bryan Kohberger, to piece together some answers. This attack was brutal, it was extremely violent, and it was personal. But why did the killer do it? Could the answer be as simple as a crime of passion? Well, just days after the murders, Bryan Kohberger allegedly told his neighbor just that. Now, this was weeks before cops would zero in on him as their prime suspect. The neighbor told a CBS reporter that Kohberger brought up the murders in casual conversation and said, quote, "It seems like they have no leads, like it was a crime of passion." The 28-year-old PhD student has been described by those who know him as being pretty awkward, particularly with women. In the weeks since his arrest, only one ex has come forward, and the term ex is really an overstatement. These two went on an awkward first date many years ago, and that is as far as it went. And a brewery owner in Pennsylvania claims that Kohberger made his female employees and customers uncomfortable by pressing them with questions about their living situations and getting irritated when his advances were rebuffed. So we've got this picture of a guy who isn't great with women and may have had an axe to grind, particularly if one of the female victims turned him down or ignored him, which is my working theory. Plus, some experts think that the killer was satiating a sexual desire. None of the victims were sexually assaulted, and criminologist Dr. Casey Jordan believes that the murderer was supplementing the act of stabbing for the act of sex. Up to this point, none of the evidence that we are aware of reveals a direct link between the victims and the suspect. Kaylee's family said that they don't really recognize Kohberger at all, but they added that they are seeing connections between him and Kaylee. And sources say he followed all three of the female victims on social media. Now, a bunch of fake accounts have popped up on Instagram purporting to be him, but one account at crim.kohberger may actually be the real deal. A source with a connection to the investigation also came forward saying that the suspect allegedly messaged one of the girls repeatedly on Instagram and got no response. Now, the messages were described as being innocuous, just a "hey, how are ya?" but they were ignored, which may have been interpreted as rejection. Even if Kohberger did follow the victims on Instagram, how he came across them in the first place is another piece of the mystery. Bryan was new to the area, having moved to nearby Pullman, Washington in June of 2022 to begin his doctorate in criminology at Washington State University. WSU and the University of Idaho, where the victims were students, are just 10 miles apart with pretty much nothing but farmland in between. Moscow, Idaho is this really quaint, inviting, charming little town, while Pullman is just kind of cold by comparison. WSU students often go to Moscow to eat and shop and hang out and things like that. Kohberger is also a strict vegan. When I was staying in the area, I looked for vegan restaurants and there just weren't any. The best you could hope for are vegan menu options, and one of the first places that pops up when searching for that is the Mad Greek in Moscow, and that is where two of the victims, Maddie and Xana, worked. A former employee told People magazine that Kohberger came in more than once for a vegan pizza. Now, the owner of the Mad Greek swiftly denied that story, but the report also said that police are aware of the visits and took surveillance video from the area. From the get-go, police were convinced that these murders were targeted. Now, law enforcement never said who they believed the target was, but a lot of people think it was Kaylee Gonsalves. Now, determining who was killed first could be the best indicator as to figuring out the killer's main target. And one of these surviving roommates told cops that she was awoken around 4 a.m. to noises coming from the third floor. Now, that is where Kaylee and Maddie were sleeping. At the time, she thought it was Kaylee playing with her dog, but then she heard one of the girls saying something chilling. Someone is here. The killer also dropped a knife sheath on the bed next to Maddie's body, so it's likely that this was the spot he first removed the murder weapon from the sheath. Now, the ferocity of Kaylee's wounds suggests two things. The first is that the majority of the killer's rage was directed at her, and the second is that she may have been the first kill when the murderer was at his strongest. Kaylee's dad has also pointed out, if those girls weren't a target, the killer would have had no reason to go up to the third floor. Xana and Ethan were found on the second floor, nearest to where cops think the murderer entered and exited. All of that points to the killer starting the stabbings on the third floor with Maddie and Kaylee. Now, DNA transfer from victim to victim will forensically determine the order of death, but that will not come out until trial. So if the third floor victims were the main target, why were Xana and Ethan also killed and two other roommates left alive and unharmed? Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan were all killed in bed, but Xana was likely up and awake. She was on TikTok minutes before being stabbed to death, and she had defensive wounds, and her body, unlike the others, was found on the floor. The surviving roommate heard crying coming from Xana's room after the noises upstairs, and the killer, she said something to the effect of, "I'm going to help you." Prior to her death, Kaylee Goncalves mentioned having a stalker. She was referring to two guys in particular who police found and cleared, neither of whom were Bryan Kohberger. But just because that lead didn't pan out doesn't mean that the victims weren't being stalked. According to law enforcement, the suspect's phone pinged in the area of the home 12 times in the months before the murders, and Kaylee's family said Kohberger allegedly got so close he connected to their Wi-Fi with his own phone. And this particular home at 1122 King Road is just an easy target. It's 3 floors, it has a really unique layout, and it's situated on a hill.
Where I'm standing is the vantage point that the alleged killer would have had if he parked back here, which is where the Hyundai was seen and what cops believe happened.
And depending on where you stand, you can see directly into every single window. Now, as I mentioned, the layout of the house is strange. The first floor has 2 bedrooms. The second floor also has 2 bedrooms, as well as the main living area, which is accessed by this sliding glass door in the back. There are also 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor. The timeline of the murders has been narrowed down to less than 20 minutes between 4:04 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. Now, in order to get in, kill 4 people, and get out in that time frame with such a strange floor plan, the killer had to have had a solid idea of how this house was laid out. Now, this was a popular off-campus party house, and based on everything that I have learned and researched, it's plausible that the killer had been inside maybe more than once, just disguised as a partygoer. Law enforcement has searched high and low for the military-style K-bar knife that the suspected murderer used. It's a standard issue knife given to members of the Marine Corps. The sheath has this insignia of the military branch stamped on the side. The medical examiner confirmed that the victims died by multiple stab wounds by a fixed blade knife in the upper body and torso. Now, the sheath was dropped next to Maddie's body, and it contained the killer's DNA. Unfortunately, though, for investigators, the murder weapon didn't turn up at the crime scene or during a search of Kohberger's apartment and office on the WSU campus. Now, his white Hyundai Elantra was dissected by a forensics team as well, and it's possible, albeit unlikely, that the knife was recovered there, but the results of that search are currently under a gag order. Now, the route that police believe the alleged killer drove from the scene of the crime back home is this long, winding, roundabout journey through just pitch black, sprawling farmland.
This is the house behind me. It's a very sort of desolate, just residential area. It looks like it's the middle of the night here, but it is just about 6 p.m. and there is little to no foot traffic or cars coming down
Kohberger and his father also drove cross-country in December from Washington to Pennsylvania, which would have provided ample opportunities to potentially discard a murder weapon. The next court date is a ways away, June 26th, but this hearing will lay out almost everything that the prosecution has on Kohberger, including a boatload of information we don't yet know about. The probable cause hearing usually happens within 2 weeks of arraignment, but Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. So in this case, the prosecution and the defense have roughly 5 months to prepare. When the date finally comes, both sides will present evidence and call witnesses so a judge can determine whether or not there is enough for this case to go to trial, and we expect it to. Now, as it stands right now, Bryan Kohberger is facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary, and he hasn't yet entered a plea.
Okay, so sorry, I was trying to get that other screen up. So that was actually she's from Daily Mail. She's like one of their like senior correspondents. She goes on like NewsNation pretty like, not like frequently, but you know, when they have, you know, someone from another news syndicate come on, she'll go on there and talk and stuff. I like her. I don't really think that there's, you know, that there's anything too wrong with her. I know that some of the stuff that like Daily Mail puts out, I've heard is like not the best, but everything that she says is pretty, has been pretty like, truthful. I feel like she stays with the facts, but she does put her opinion. And like, that's what the videos are. They kind of have her opinion on them as well. And I kind of like hearing someone else's opinion on them. So, other than our regular news people. So what made me actually even look at the page was I didn't even know that Daily Mail had their own, YouTube channel. I saw this new video that I'm getting ready to show next. I saw this video come out today. It came out like, I don't know, probably about 6 hours ago now, maybe, or something like that. So let's see when it came out. I'm going to try to refresh the page. Hopefully it doesn't. Oh.
Maddie Kaylee Zach.
Okay, so let's see. Because I like to let you guys know, it came out 7 hours ago. So it just came out not too long ago. She does have great hair. So in this video, though, you'll notice one eyebrow her hair's a little messed up in it, but that's okay because she has really good eyebrows. But I am so jealous of her. She's able to put her bottom lashes are like, have mascara on them and they're really pretty. And I'm really jealous of that because I cannot put mascara on my lower eyelashes to save my life. This one, since it's a fake eye and it waters constantly, it will like, it's just not good to have mascara in it. So yeah. So you'll see this whenever she starts talking like the eyebrow thing. Like I've watched this I think 3 or 4 times today. And I'm like, dang, I just want to fix it. But yeah, so you've never seen her, Teresa? She's been on NewsNation a couple times. So like she'll go on there and just talk, but I like her point of view, but she's putting me down this rabbit hole now. We'll have to talk about that on our next live because I got the PCA out and I shouldn't have. I am noticing times and like, I don't know. Now my brain is like, I don't know. It's left my body. It has left my body. Did we really make it all the way to 7 already tonight? I didn't know we made it all the way up there. I think we still have some more to go, but we'll get there. We will get there. But everyone needs to subscribe to the channel. Summer's getting way too excited, but we'll be there before we know it. I think we're at 6.9, little over. So we're getting there. You guys make me work harder when you tell me that something though. Like if you're like, yeah, you have 7,000. I'm like, oh, I do. And then I look and I don't. And I'm like, oh, we got to get there then. No, if you guys do want to subscribe though, it is helping my little channel grow. We're trying to hit 10,000 Titans over here. And I think we can do it. I think we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and play this other Daily Mail for you guys. And like I said, thank you for joining me this evening. If you guys wouldn't mind just hitting the like button, it actually does help the channel grow and it sends out the video so that more people will come in the chat. That way, if you guys are watching the chat grow, you'll be able to watch some more people chat. So this one here, this video is the next one I'm going to show you. And then I'll show you the picture before if we have time, make sure, because we have like 20 minutes before the Dan Abrams newscast comes on and I want to watch that with you guys. So I want to make sure I get this video out, and then we'll look at that picture. There's not a new PCA, but I just keep reading it, and I feel like I need like a big whiteboard. Like my brain is doing math, and I shouldn't even be doing math anyway in my head, but I feel like I need like a big whiteboard because I'm thinking things, and I'm just like I'm thinking, okay, just for instance, they're saying that the camera it picked up, muffled noises and maybe a scream and then a dog barking at 4:17 a.m. But the camera was down by Zana's room. But why would the dog all the way up in Maddie's room hear what's going on all the way down in Zana's bedroom? Like, I don't understand that when Dylan was right there and she didn't hear anything, or Bethany didn't hear anything on the first floor. Like, if the dog's going to hear something all the way up on the third floor, I don't know. My brain's just going crazy. So with that said, I'll go ahead and play this one. I just have all these different times in my head now. So I'm going to figure it out, and then I'm going to talk about it tomorrow.
Anna and Ethan were the victims of a murderer who police believe methodically planned exactly how he would slip into their home under the cover of night, armed with a knife to commit murder. Now, these 4 innocent victims ended up in the crosshairs of a cold-blooded killer, but I suspect that 3 of them may have actually been collateral damage. And to understand why, we have to try to get inside of the alleged killer's mind. Let's go back to November 12th. It was a game day for the University of Idaho Vandals. Students partied, they drank, they laughed, they got home late, they went to bed. But for 4 of them, they wouldn't live to see the 13th. Now, I have spent months investigating the horrific events which transpired that night to make sense of it all, but according to theories by police, the fates of Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie were sealed long before November. Now, on the day of his arrest, police searched Kohberger's apartment and Washington State University office looking for proof that he methodically planned his alleged crime. Investigators said in their search warrant affidavit that they were happened in the heat of the moment. But what does premeditation look like? Well, in this case, detectives think that the suspect made plans by researching other violent assaults like stabbings, as well as ways to avoid getting caught. They also believe that Bryan Kohberger stalked the residents of 1122 King Road for weeks before the murders.
We're looking here at the back of the house. Screen still on the ground. Dylan's room. It's a common space.
Since day one, police have said that the quadruple homicide was targeted and sourced.
Someone please explain to me still to this day. This is a new video, so she just took this video. I'm just gonna go rewind this right here because I still have a problem with this, very much so. Okay, we gotta go up here a little bit. Why didn't the cops ever take that trash? Like, I mean, I know that sounds stupid. That might sound stupid. That might. But if you have a trash can, and it was sitting like it's on its side now, so it's clearly not sat upright anymore, but it was sat upright. If you're leaving like a murder scene or something and you're in a hurry and someone just saw you, maybe you wanted to ditch the knife in the trash can on your way out. I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe probably not, but you never know. And the trash has just been sitting there. I just don't understand that. I feel like someone needs to pick up that trash. About a trail cam? Oh, I don't know. Kaylee said, yeah, I am thinking there's more video. Didn't I hear something early on about a trail cam? I don't know. I didn't hear about a trail cam. I don't think I did. I know that Alec Murdaugh, they had trail cams, didn't they? Weren't they talking to him about his trail cams? And he said, yeah, but they don't like point over this way. I don't know if you were following the Alec Murdaugh trial and the case too. Because I know my brain was getting confused there for a while. Yeah, Nikki, you just take it easy. You just hang out, put your feet up, listen to my soothing voice. I don't know if you've been here since I got my new mic. Got a new mic. The old one is back there. I don't know if you've been here since I've moved up to the desk. I don't think you have. So I'll go ahead and start playing this again. But yeah, the trash, it just bothered me. I don't know. I know that the screen was already on the ground and everything prior to all this, but that trash just, it really bothers me. I mean, they're already going through everything else. They might as well just take that too.
Screen still on the ground. Dylan's room. It's a common space.
Since day one, police have said that the quadruple homicide was targeted, and sources close to the investigation have indicated that it was just one target. Kaylee's family believes it was her. But how did one target become 4 bodies and also leave 2 survivors? Well, it's my opinion that the suspected killer had planned to slaughter just one single victim that night, but that his plan went awry when he got in the house. Now, based on everything I know about the case, I am fairly confident Xana and Ethan were collateral damage, as well as one of the other 2 victims, but I'm not sure just who quite yet. It seems that the alleged killer may have been obsessed with only one of the girls in the house. A source with knowledge of the investigation recently told People magazine that Kohberger's phone contained multiple images of one of the victims. So it's my opinion that law enforcement will likely find more images and information in their digital investigation that will zero in on a single victim. Now, the source also told the outlet that Kohberger followed Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana on social media, but repeatedly messaged only one of them. Now, on the night of the murders, the surviving roommate first heard noises of the intruder on the 3rd floor. That is where the killings most likely started. Bearing that in mind, I think either Kaylee or Madison were the intended target, and the other was just killed because of sheer bad luck because they were in the same room. I believe the killer had a well thought out plan, and that plan that they had laid out in painstaking detail went totally wrong. I don't think the killer expected Maddie and Kaylee to be in the same bed, and that is where things just went off the rails. As for Xana, she was awake at the time of the killings, and it's my assertion that the killer realized she was up and had to kill her in order to keep her quiet. The surviving roommate heard crying from Xana's room, and the killer trying to calm her down by lying and saying he was going to help her before stabbing her to death. That would mean that Ethan, who was sleeping in Xana's bedroom, his girlfriend's bedroom, was most likely killed because he was just in the room when Xana was slaughtered. It's my opinion that the suspect never intended on having multiple victims, but likely felt he had to kill the 3 others, which is also why I think that there were 2 survivors left unharmed. Not only do I think the suspected killer had just one target, but I also think he became obsessed with that target months prior. Kohberger moved from his home in Pennsylvania to Washington State University in June of 2022 to get his doctorate in criminology. And it wasn't long before cops believe he started showing up at the victim's home. Before his arrest, investigators obtained a search warrant for Kohberger's historical cell phone data. And as early as August 21st, his phone pinged a tower covering 1122 King Road. That's more than 2 months before the murders. And on that first night, his phone allegedly was in the area for an hour from about 10:30 to 11:30 p.m. The thought of someone just lurking outside of your home at that time of night on its face value is creepy. But just picture what Kohberger could have seen. There's a parking lot behind the structure attached to a small apartment complex. From there, you could slip out of your car pretty much unnoticed and just watch. That vantage point looks directly into Kaylee's bedroom, into Maddie's bedroom, into the kitchen and the living room. Based on phone records, police believe Kohberger went to the home and watched the house, not once, not twice, but 12 times from late August until November.
Where I'm standing is the vantage point that the alleged killer would have had if he parked back here, which is where the Hyundai was seen and what cops believe happened. And this right here is the foundation to Xana's room. You can still actually see, even after all these weeks, the drips and drops of blood right there that had come out from the foundation. And of course, we now know that Xana was found on the floor of her bedroom, so that would make a lot of sense.
And it seems he didn't just spend time by the house. He is also suspected of loitering around campus. A sophomore at the University of Idaho told a People reporter that they saw Bryan at the student union. Now, a student at the student union is not weird, but
okay, hold on. I thought this is what I was trying to wait for. Okay, so we've got a few minutes, so I'm going to show you this picture really quick. It's kind of like off the screen a little bit. Let me see if I can move it over with my Mac. I hate, yeah, it's not going to do it. It's being stupid. Because when I go to close it, yeah. Okay, it's just going to be like over a little bit. But tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. But does this guy not, when she said that Bryan Kohberger was hanging out in the student union, this picture was taken between the 13th of November and the 16th of November. So right after the murders, but before he was arrested. Tell me if this guy in the blue shirt doesn't look like him. And this is at the student center in Moscow. I mean, you just let me, I mean, I think it looks like him, other than the arm looks kind of skinny. But that's just me. I was like, I got to show these. I got to show you guys. And then I found it today and I was like, holy crap, I found it. But the guy in the blue, or this may be the same gentleman that was at the candlelight service for the and I may just be seeing double. Because I didn't think that guy looked like Bryan Kohberger per se. But a lot of other people did, but I think this kind of looks like him. I don't know if it's the jaw. Like maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like the jowl or whatever you call it. But maybe that's what it is to me. But Vincent, he's like, I don't really see it. And I was like, well, what do you know, Vincent? So that's I thought that looked like him. So we'll go ahead and get back to the lady talking over here. She's almost done, and then we'll get to the video. But yeah.
Remember, Kohberger went to a completely different university. And this sophomore said, quote, he was the type to stare. He wouldn't look away if you caught him staring, like he wanted you to notice he was looking at you. And another student said that they saw him so often on the University of Idaho campus that they just assumed he was enrolled there. Now, I have been to both the University of Idaho and Washington State University campuses. There is no reason that I can think of to just be hanging out at the other campus unless you are there to meet someone, or what I believe happened in this case was to watch someone. Police seized Kohberger's cell phone at the time of his arrest, as well as a computer tower and a Fire TV stick from his apartment to see if he left any kind of search history showing an interest in or planning of murder, violent assault, stabbing, and or cutting of people, as well as details about the home at 1122 King Road, the surrounding neighborhood, or any of the victims or survivors. They're also hoping that his digital devices will offer up clues as to other locations where evidence like the murder weapon may be found. Connecting Kohberger directly to the knife used in the stabbings will be key for prosecutors. His DNA was already allegedly found on the snap of the knife sheath, according to law enforcement, but that is still not the knife itself, not the murder weapon. The knife used in the slayings had to be obtained from somewhere, and police believe that Kohberger went out and bought it sometime before the crime. Investigators may have found evidence of this already. The search of Kohberger's apartment turned up a Walmart receipt as well as 2 Marshall's receipts. Now, these receipts hold some significance. When cops execute a search warrant, they can only look for a specific list of items pertaining to the crime, and they only seize materials believed to have probative value in the case. Now, to be crystal clear here, we don't know what was on these receipts, what specifically he bought at Walmart, but Walmart does sell fixed blade K-bar knives, and a K-bar knife sheath was left at the crime scene, and the medical examiner confirmed the 4 victims were killed by a fixed blade knife. Bryan Kohberger is a unique suspect because he has a long-time academic interest in crimes and criminals. His master's degree is in criminal justice, and he was a criminology PhD student at the time of the murders. So his academic research into the criminal mind goes back years as part of his master's program at DeSales University. Now, there, Kohberger studied under world-renowned Professor Catherine Ramsland, and true crime junkies will no doubt recognize her name. She has done extensive research into the minds of serial killers, specifically her relationship and book on BTK. Kohberger also conducted a research project into convicted criminals, and he asked them a series of survey questions. For a criminal
Do you think that, okay, I was just thinking about this, and I mean, I could be totally wrong, and this could be totally wrong, but Kaylee was really into true crime, and wasn't it Kaylee's Reddit that they took? So if it was her Reddit, I think that's what the search warrant came back for, was for her Reddit. What if she like looked at this research participation thing, or what if she like knew Kohberger because of Reddit somehow, because she like of the criminal justice aspect of it, because she was really into like true crime. I don't know. I was just wondering. So they did take one of their Reddits, and they did like 60 different search warrants, and it's on my last, I think 2 lives ago. And Dr. Ramsland's not talking. Yeah, she ain't saying nothing. So I'm just wondering if maybe that could be a connection. I was just thinking that, so I wanted to say it before I forgot.
Justice researcher, these questions are kind of par for the course, but in light of the crime that he has been accused of, some experts have suggested that Kohberger may have been trying to study the mistakes and the minds of other criminals to create a blueprint for himself. Now, let me show you an example of some of these questions. Now, these are his specific questions. Why did you choose that victim or target over others? What was the first move you made to accomplish your goal? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? Knowledge of the quadruple homicide now makes these questions in retrospect seem sinister and not academic. And I want to point out the usage of the term goal here. We're talking about crimes, sometimes violent crimes, being referred to as a goal, a term most of us consider to be positive. So is that how Bryan Kohberger views violent crimes, as a goal to achieve? Were these questions a method to weed out mistakes before acting on his own violent impulses? I don't know, and we may never know the answer. The answer might not even matter. There's a good chance that this survey will not make it into trial, so a jury may never hear it. But if a judge does allow it in, the defense may utilize it as a way to plant the seed of reasonable doubt by explaining away all of this research, or any research or Google searches found into violent stabbings, potentially on Kohberger's devices, as simply just him doing his schoolwork. It will ultimately be up to a jury to decide whether the suspect is a premeditated murderer or an innocent criminology student. But if Kohberger is convicted and sentenced to the death penalty, he may face a firing squad.
Yeah, Nikki, they did a search warrant on his person, they did a search warrant on his parents' home, and they released a search warrant on his car. Man, you got so much to catch up on. You're going to be like loving life. That's how I'd be, like, you know, not like because it's a bad, like not because of the case, but because of the case, you know, having content to listen to. I would love that, because then you get to hear something new. We have to, the rest of us have to wait until June 26th when he goes on, when he goes for his next court appearance, which, you know, with everything going forward, the judge, you know, took off that week for evidence hearing on all of that. And so they should have like no problems being going forward. Let's see. So it's 9 o'clock now, but it's still on Kuma. So it must be getting ready to go on there. Let me actually get Spectrum up here, because I forgot to get it on my thing. So I think we just made it just in time. Look at that. So we're going to watch the Dan Abrams. He's coming. Dan Abrams from NewsNation is, oh, sorry. Oops. Sorry, guys. He's coming out with a new like news coverage tonight. So we're going to watch that. Make sure you like the channel if you don't mind, and don't forget to subscribe if you like the content.
Or weaker today than when he was arrested. And what about Kohberger's defense strategy? Plus, his sheltered life in jail as he awaits his trial. We've got more information on that. And then, of course, the 4 victims, in the words of their families. But tonight, as we dedicate the hour to the brutal murders from back in November, this includes damning new evidence from hundreds of pages of newly released search warrants. Information which reveals for the first time how law enforcement developed their case against the man accused of the killings, 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger. And we'll hear about the two most critical pieces of evidence recovered from the raid on the home of Kohberger's parents. The question now, of course, is how is all of this going to fit in to the prosecution's case? For now, Kohberger sits in an Idaho jail cell awaiting his preliminary hearing in June on charges that he murdered 21-year-old Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, and 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, as well as Ethan Chapin. Idaho authorities have been tight-lipped about the investigation, but let's go through the new details on what those new court records reveal. Police issued nearly 70 warrants for social media platforms, phone and financial records for Kohberger and all four victims. As late as January 25th, well after Kohberger's arrest, even after his first court appearances, the filings include major companies, Google, Apple, Walmart, Amazon, Facebook's parent company, Meta, Match Group, the owner of dating websites like Tinder and OkCupid. One search warrant shows access for information for a possible purchase of a K-Bar knife and K-Bar USMC knife sheath. Remember, a key piece of evidence remains DNA found on the knife sheath left at the crime scene, similar to this one. Single source of male DNA on the button snap of the sheath, which police said they matched to Kohberger. It may be the most important piece of evidence in the case. And authorities appear particularly interested in several eBay user accounts connected to Washington State, Idaho, and Pennsylvania. Another warrant involves a DoorDash delivery made to Xana Kernodle around the time police believe she and the others were killed. Still another looks at a Reddit post Kohberger made prior to the murders as part of a research project. Of course, chillingly on how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making in the commission of a crime. Kohberger was a graduate student at DeSales University in his home state of Pennsylvania at the time of the post. Other search warrants to Apple, Google, AT&T, and Verizon are still sealed, as are warrants for the police's own forensic labs that may have processed the DNA. The warrants show, at least first, police were focused on victim Kaylee Gonzalez, including her Tinder, Reddit, Google, and Yahoo profiles and emails. Her parents have said themselves they believe that she may have been Kohberger's intended target. And we have learned that her injuries were, quote, significantly more brutal than that of the other victims. Other information, included the warrants, are consistent with the police affidavit released at the time of Kohberger's first Idaho court appearance, including cell phone records that show Kohberger appears to have left his apartment in Pullman, Washington at 2:42 a.m. 5 minutes later, his signal is lost until about 2 hours later at 4:48 a.m., after police say the murders took place. Police believe Kohberger was trying to conceal his location by putting his phone on airplane mode or shutting it off. His phone signal is picked back up at 4:50, and at 5:26 a.m., he's traveling back to his home in Pullman. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' Pennsylvania home on December the 30th. He had his first court appearance on January 5th, and since then, authorities have continued issuing search warrants, 5 more, seeking Kohberger's records from Washington State University, Google, Tinder, Yik Yak, a social media platform popular among college students. There's also a demand to Dropbox, a cloud storage site for information connected to someone whose name remains redacted. Now, earlier this month, Pennsylvania authorities redacted a search warrant served on Kohberger's parents' home during his arrest on December 30th, but the documents do show police took a cheek swab from Kohberger and a pair of Nikes, which the Pennsylvania prosecutor in charge of the investigation in that state says will be key evidence.
I would be keen on the shoes, the size of the shoes, the comparison to any shoe impressions that might have been recovered at the scene.
Police also seized from Kohberger's home 2 knives, including a Smith & Wesson pocket knife, a Glock handgun, a silver flashlight, 4 medical gloves, a T-shirt, a black Washington State Cougars sweatshirt, a pair of black socks, black shorts, black boxers, and finally, the Monroe County, Pennsylvania prosecutor also shared this insight, which helps to explain previous reporting that authorities, in a search of Kohberger's family trash that was done days before the arrest, only recovered DNA profiles from his family members, including his father, and not him. This DA, First Assistant Michael Mancuso, describing what Kohberger was doing when authorities went in to arrest him just before 1:30 in the morning.
Mr. Kohberger was found awake in the kitchen area, dressed in shorts and a shirt and wearing latex medical type gloves, and apparently was taking his personal trash and putting it into separate Ziploc baggies. It could very well explain some of the other aspects of the case from Idaho, some of the lengths that a person would go to avoid having their DNA left behind when they know or should have known that there was an investigation underway.
So this is an investigation which remains incredibly active in the run-up to the preliminary hearing in late June. Police are clearly zeroing in on something in, I think, multiple areas, but exactly what? Did Kohberger have contact on social media or dating websites with any of the victims? We know it's been reported that he tried to reach out to at least one of the women on Instagram. There's so much to try to sort through here. Joining me now, Jesse Weber, attorney and host on Law and Crime Network, and NewsNation legal contributor, and Misty Maris, criminal defense attorney, who has also been following the case very closely. Good to see you both. All right, so we were talking about this right before we went on the air. Misty, take me through your takeaways since the arrest as to all this information we now have, a lot of it gathered in the last couple of weeks. Where does this leave us in terms of the investigation?
I think we can really see where the investigation is going and ultimately what prosecutors are looking for. I see these warrants falling into two separate buckets. First, the internet footprint. This speaks to potential motive, Dan, because this is whether or not Kohberger had contact with any of these victims over the internet on a dating website. We know that that's an avenue that investigators are looking at. The other is the money trail. Keep in mind, we don't have a murder weapon yet. So we know a lot of these warrants were for these big box retailers, for eBay, for Amazon. So they're looking to see if they can connect Kohberger through the money trail to potentially the murder weapon or anything else that could be connected to the crime scene.
Jesse, what about you?
A couple of things to add to that. It's also the premeditated aspect. Remember, he's charged with 4 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. How much was he planning this leading up to it? Buying the knife, stalking the victims. Where was he? And I think there's another thing that hurts the defense. They didn't know it was Kohberger immediately, so they looked at all of the lives of the victims and was trying to see who was connected to them, who else might have been responsible. So this is a very different case than Alec Murdaugh, where you come forward and say, well, of course they went after him. Of course, you know, the defense said he was the first person they looked at. Not the case here. They were trying to look at anybody that might be connected to these 4 victims before eyeing their sights on Kohberger.
And why do you think they're still redacting so much information in these warrants?
So the warrant, the standard is good cause. And oftentimes if the state thinks that it could potentially taint the investigation, taint the jury pool, they'll say, hey, we need to keep this out of the public eye, especially when you have a case like this, where the interest, the media, it's so involved in the case. So I think that that's why we're not getting all of the information in the public sphere. Again, it's to preserve that investigation.
And Jesse, from what we're not seeing, what is the stuff you most want to see?
Have they found where the murder weapon is or where it might be, right? And I think also it's the why. It's the why about what was his connection to them. How does a complete stranger come out of nowhere and target these 4 individuals? And I think whether or not they knew about him beforehand becomes a critical issue. And the cover-up, right? So there's certain things. We talked about the clothing. You know, what exactly was he wearing? We know that the surviving victim in that house said that he was wearing dark clothes, was wearing a black mask. Have we positively identified where that clothing is? Does he have DNA from the victims on any of those pieces that were found in his parents' house or even in his house in Pullman, Washington? That becomes a critical issue.
So what do you think the prosecutors are sort of doing right now? I mean, do they still view prosecutors and investigators as this point in the case is still critical? Because remember, when he was first arrested, with all this evidence, right? The cell phone evidence, the timeline, the videos, matching it all up together. How critical do you think this point in the investigation is?
This is incredibly critical because all of that evidence is really circumstantial. When it comes down to it, a defense attorney is going to be able to undercut a lot of those puzzle pieces that together paint the picture. But individually, there's going to be significant defenses. Here, they need to really link Kohberger to the crime scene, to the victims. And I'm really interested to see if any of those items that were recovered can be traced directly back to the crime scene.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be really tough to find the murder weapon, right? I think
Yeah.
that's probably a long shot at this point.
If they haven't found it now, it's not looking great. Now, we know you can still get a guilty verdict across
Right.
the board, even without a murder
And
weapon.
if you
It's
can
gonna
show
help.
he bought something similar,
Right.
even if you don't find the item itself, that could be useful as well.
I would say for the defense, though, and you and I
We'll get
talked
into
about
the
it.
defense in a minute.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
common
yeah.
thing to buy, but
Yeah.
not in this case.
Yeah.
Look, I think the one thing to add to that as well is, this is leading up to the preliminary hearing. We are going to see more than we saw in that probable cause affidavit. They want to make sure they have enough to go forward with the trial. So I think there's going to be more evidence we see during this preliminary hearing that they're uncovering now, and a lot more evidence when there's an eventual trial.
It's like a mini trial. The preliminary hearing, we're going to learn a lot about where the investigation, how it unfolded, why did investigators go after these certain internet profiles, why those retailers. We're going to
Play
learn a
this
lot.
sound. This is the Pennsylvania prosecutor from the time of the arrest talking about what Kohberger was doing and at the time of the arrest and why he thinks it's important.
Mr. Kohberger, as with any other criminal defendant, is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. So that remains the case, but certainly for the investigation and the interest of the investigators in building the case layer by layer, that was a significant find.
I think he's talking there about exactly what they found in the home and the DNA matching up, et cetera, when they arrested him.
Right.
Because it's interesting because the Pennsylvania authorities are still talking to some degree, or they had been, and yet this gag order is in place, which we'll talk about in a minute, which seems to be preventing any of the witnesses, et cetera, from speaking.
Because if we didn't have that, I think we would know a lot more than we do now. And like I said, with the probable cause, with the preliminary hearing, they just need to show enough probable cause to move forward with the trial. It's a relatively low standard, but right now they seem to have a lot.
Yeah, and I think he's also talking about the way Kohberger was acting after the fact, right, when the investigators came. And that's, of course, relevant to ultimately proving the case.
Right. All right, everyone stick around. Coming up, we're examining Bryan Kohberger's likely defense strategy. His lawyer requested backup to take on the case. A co-counsel who's what's called death qualified. Well, the prosecution has not announced whether they'll seek the death penalty. It seems likely, given the brutality and the fact that there were multiple victims. And we'll have some new reporting that we got this week on exactly what Bryan Kohberger did leading up to the time of the murders, coming up.
Okay. I think it's okay in the background. As long as, I don't have the volume up. So yeah, it's the 26th. I have that wrote down like everywhere. I should be tattooed on me. Do you think that they will seek the death penalty? I think that they will. So far, I feel like that's the way that it's going. I can start my camera. Hi, everybody. I always just leave it off whenever the show's on because I'm usually writing stuff down. Frogging, I think that's when you jump from one building to another building, isn't it? Or something? Like an acrobat? Is allegedly in here? Because I haven't heard that since he was around. If that's what it is. But I was looking it up, and it does say that they use both paper and plastic bags for evidence. Just the part that I just copied was just from the Harris County Texas.gov site. That's the one that I put in the chat. But I think, so I think that they are going to seek the death penalty. Xana's mom is. So that's the other thing. So they usually will ask everybody that is involved in the case what they feel like the punishment should be. And at first I kind of thought, well, I think Maddie's dad was kind of leaning away from it. And I think Xana's mom was leaning away from it. But Kaylee's parents were not leaning away from that at all. But I don't know. I think at the end of the day, they may end up just going ahead and doing it. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if their voices are going to be loud enough to overshadow. Like, I don't want to make this sound bad, but Steve, like, is on it. You know what I mean? Like, only reason why he is not out and talking is because he can't be out and talking. But Steve wants justice, and he wants him in a grave, I'm pretty sure. So with that being said, I don't think Steve's going to rest until he gets that DP, until this is a DP case. Like, I don't think that he is going to rest, because he said, why rest when Kohberger was out there, when, you know, he's like, I can't be resting right now. My girl can't rest. So it's just crazy. Hi, Ray Davis. Good evening. I just saw you come in. Magic, you think lethal injection would almost be worse? So that's what I thought too, actually. I was like, give me the firing squad. I think I've heard so many like terrible things with it being like with the lethal injection not working. And I think, I don't know what I don't think I would want either, but you know, that would be some scary stuff. Can you imagine spending the rest of your days alone and then you get to walk down this like one pathway to your death alone? Pamela, you're right. Xana's mom is a very sad woman. She makes me sad. The firing squad is actually a thing, Nikki. They brought that back because I guess the drugs for lethal injection are hard to get. And I could see that because a lot of things are hard to get right now in the pharmacy world. So I could see that being one of them. So I don't know. I think that people don't ever say that in the state of Texas that there's a problem, or the beautiful state of Florida. They never have a problem with putting anybody to, you know, to death. Oh, let me turn it back on. Oh, there's Xana's mom. Speaking of which, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, guys.
He, pretended that she was wanting to help me.
I guess we'll hear now.
And to find that out that she's representing him, I can't even convey how betrayed I feel.
That was Idaho murder victim Xana Kernodle's mother, Karen Northington, speaking just after she found out that the public defender who had represented her in court for some low-level drug offenses and was still representing her had recused herself from representing Northington to instead represent Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of brutally killing her daughter and 3 of her friends. It was just one of several bizarre turns in this story. Northington was, in my view, rightly upset and shaken, not the least because, as I pointed out on this show at the time, Northington said that no one even notified her that the lawyer, Ann Taylor, was representing Kohberger. She found out from a friend who saw it on Reddit. Taylor spoke in court for a delay in the case to push the preliminary hearing back, a request the judge granted.
We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June. We would request the 3rd or 4th week of June and probably 4 or 5 days for preliminary hearing. Mr. Kohberger understands his right to a timely preliminary hearing, and he's willing to waive the timeliness to allow us time to obtain discovery in this case.
Yes, Latah County, is it Latah or Lata? Latah County in Idaho, where the case is currently being heard, has a limited pool of public defenders who are qualified to handle a death penalty case. But still, that was an ugly early chapter, and now a judge has approved Taylor's request for a second death penalty qualified co-counsel to work with her, though it's not yet clear who that may be. In death penalty cases in Idaho, defense counsel is required to have at least 2 what are called death qualified attorneys. Though the prosecution has not announced whether they'll even seek the death penalty, it seems likely given the brutality and the fact that there were multiple victims. The defense, calling the media coverage twisted, asked the Idaho Supreme Court this month to keep in place a gag order which prevents everyone from attorneys and law enforcement agencies to lawyers, even the survivors and witnesses, survivors including the victims' family members, from saying anything about the case. Kaylee Gonsalves, family's attorney, Shannon Gray, has opposed it, saying, quote, it's overly broad and places an undue burden on the victims' families in transmitting the victims' families' thoughts and opinions. We're also learning that the Moscow, Idaho house where the murders took place will be torn down. The University of Idaho telling NewsNation the people who own it gave the house to the university, which has plans to demolish it at the end of the spring semester. Meantime, there's security 24/7 at the house to protect against so-called true crime tourists. The university president saying in a statement, quote, this is a healing step and removes the physical structure where the crime that shook our community was committed. Demolition also removes efforts to further sensationalize the crime scene. Joining me again, Jesse Weber and Misty Maris. Let's talk about that first, about tearing down the house. The defense initially opposed it because they wanted to make sure they got access to the house to be able to use it for their defense.
Of course, I think that would be what any defense attorney would do, because who knows what else is in there. And again, we were talking about this before, especially in Murdaugh, they always, as a defense strategy, question the veracity of the investigation, how it was done, how it was conducted. So tearing down that house could potentially take away defenses that may exist.
And let's put up the 3D image of the house as Jesse talks about this. I would think that, you know, typically the jurors always want to go visit. Very rarely do the judge actually allow it to happen. It happened in Murdaugh where they were allowed to go to the scene. Do you have any concerns about them tearing down the house before the trial begins?
Well, my concerns would be if the defense is going to call their own forensic experts, what are they going to look at? Are they going to look at the evidence that was all obtained? I mean, was anything left over? Obviously, I have a concern. I understand why it was torn down. And
But it hasn't been torn down yet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but the concern, of course, is was everything properly taken out and processed before there's this rush to it? And I think that's the only concern. We talked about the same thing with the Rush shooting, you know, whether the weapon was actually destroyed. There was a back and forth about that. Yeah. Clearly, that's something the defense would jump on.
But I think the setup of this house is going to be really relevant when it comes to trial. Remember, they're in separate bedrooms on different floors.
Yeah.
That's all going to be a part of whatever the timeline becomes as we get into the case.
So let's talk about the defense. I mean, if you're a defense attorney, if you're the defense attorney, what are you doing now as you're preparing for this case?
I'm going to have a lot of experts in this case, Dan. And the first thing is going to be to undercut the cell phone ping evidence, which, quite frankly, is not that strong. So it sounds like cell phones, GPS, all of that. The pinging of the cell tower is really easy to undercut from a defense perspective because it only puts someone in the general vicinity. It doesn't give an exact location. So you want to try and undercut that evidence. Of course, the DNA evidence, the knife sheath, that's going to be contested. The way it was obtained and whether or not it's accurate, the veracity of that. I'm also going to be talking about how Kohberger lives in the area. To the extent that he's been around this house, he's caught on the video. Well, look, he lives in the area. Maybe he has other reasons to be there. Plausible explanations for why he's there. There's also been a lot of talk about mental state. There is no insanity defense, and quite frankly, I think based on what we know right now, an insanity defense, even in a state where it existed, would be impossible to raise. But mental state could be important, especially if they're foreshadowing a death penalty case.
Got one more recommendation. Make sure to tell him not to say anything to any of the inmates while he's locked up, because we've seen that be a death sentence, really a bad problem for defendants before. And I think everybody's observing his behavior. But I think you hit on a number of different things, but also say, what does the prosecution not have? So like we talked about, they don't have the murder weapon. His phone was turned off and didn't ping him in the location of these murders during that time frame. And so I think they would try to strike on that.
I think it's very unfair that the judge is not allowing the victims' families to speak out. I can understand the lawyers, it's not fair about that.
I would agree with you, except what we saw at the beginning of this case when. And I completely understand people's feelings, but there was a lot of communication that was coming out from the family. There was miscommunication that was coming out from the prosecutor's office that conflicted with the sheriff's department. We were all confused. One side was saying one thing, one side was saying another before you even had a suspect. My concern would be if you take away that gag order, it might jeopardize.
But again, you don't have to remove the entirety of the gag order. You can just make it not so sweeping. I mean, the Gonsalves family saying, quote, "We're confident that once the decision is made in the above, that Mr. Gray will once again be able to speak on our behalf," meaning their lawyer. "He will continue to address any concerns our family has while continuing to hold the investigators, prosecutors, and all parties accountable as the family supports the prosecution of Mr. Kohberger. Finally, we firmly believe it was the coverage by the media of the victims' families, numerous witnesses, and undeniable evidence that led to an arrest in this case."
Yeah, this gag order is really expansive and very unusual.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the judge is just in this position where all of these high-profile cases, there's so much scrutiny on what the judge does before when it comes to gag orders, when it comes to moving venue, whatever it might be, that they're trying to protect the investigation and ultimately a jury pool.
Yeah, but typically a judge, judges tend to err on the side of saying, yeah, just everyone be quiet, but there are constitutional principles in play as well that, for example,
it's usually carved out.
Yeah, the media here is challenging the breadth of this gag order.
Wouldn't it be kind of hard, though, to nitpick what people are saying in each interview? You know, I'll tell you right now, there was statements that were made at the beginning about the injury sustained by Ms. Gonsalves. And I interviewed different forensic experts who said it doesn't make sense what these people are saying. I don't know if they misheard what was told to them. I don't know if it was miscommunication. And I think that's the problem. We don't want to be in that area, Dan.
I also think we don't know what we don't know, right? The judge sees everything. And we know that part of the reason for redacting those warrants was because of a public safety concern. That's what was raised by the prosecution, to keep all of those warrants under seal. So could there be something more?
Well, see, I'm okay with parts of the warrant that are going to become evidence, right, redacting portions. I'm okay even in certain cases with saying I don't want the prosecution and defense talking about the case publicly. Once you start getting into witnesses and telling people, particularly victims' families, what they can and can't say, then I start getting uncomfortable. I'm going to ask you guys to oh, actually, we're going to thank you, Misty. So, Misty, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Jesse's going to stick around because we got new reporting this week on Bryan Kohberger, his life of flying under the radar before allegedly murdering 4 college students. We know a lot more now about his backstory. That is coming up.
Hopefully this isn't stuff we already heard. I don't think it was, but but it shouldn't be. I was surprised, and I was also surprised that Banfield didn't play this tonight because it's Friday night, and she comes on Friday nights. So I was really, because usually like Banfield does, Idaho 4 and just true crime in general, but You don't think that he acted alone? I think that he acted totally alone. And this is my theory, and this is based on this theory. If you're committing a crime with another person, you have to make sure that your buddy or whoever you're committing that crime with is doing their part. They have to be just as enthusiastic as you are about hurting these people. They have to be able to be stealthy like you and not get evidence anywhere. And then you have to make sure, like, you just have to be like keeping up with someone. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would be like, I'll do this crap on my own. Like, you know what I mean? I think that it would have been way bigger of a mess. I think that he would have been arrested he wouldn't even got it 2 weeks. It was only like 2 weeks and the cops knew who he was. He's not smart. And Vincent made a very valid point today, and I'm going to bring this up, and don't hate me and don't cancel me. But he made a valid point. He said that Bryan Kohberger has been getting too much. He's starting to outshine the victims. Like, it's not that people are hating Bryan Kohberger and they're saying that Bryan Kohberger did this. There is so many people that are coming out saying that Bryan Kohberger didn't do this now that I see. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but it's crazy. Like, I don't know, like the other day, my chat was going crazy for Bryan Kohberger in here. And then like the more and more I've noticed, I'm like, wow, a lot more people are starting to take his side, which I think that, if you guys can see that with all the evidence that they have, then, let me know what you guys see that I don't see. Cause I think that the evidence is pretty stacked against him so far. Circumstantial or not, most cases, most. I don't know the exact percentage, but I'm going to say over 90% are just circumstantial based. So, you can have, if that's what circumstantial is. It's all of these circumstances come together and nobody else could be that person. And they have, they do have his phone pinging around the house, which, that's whatever, but I'm sure that they have something even better than that with the phone pinging. I'm sure that there's something else, like a camera or something. They did have a Ring camera because remember they noticed when Maddie and Kaylee got home, her sister had got that Ring camera. So maybe they noticed, maybe that was what the camera noticed, the car, or maybe they noticed Bryan Kohberger on that camera. I don't know. I just can't get over. I think it's him. I do. And I like to say, give people a chance, and I'm one of those people, don't say someone's guilty unless they're guilty, but I'll say If he goes before a judge and they dismiss this case because he's not guilty, or, DNA comes out and says he's not guilty. I mean, something that says he's not guilty, then I will apologize. But if it's like a hung jury or something, then we'll be talking about that then when that happens. But I don't see that even happening. No, he's definitely not a complete moron, Stevie Irwin. And he said it's strange. I read the comment, and I always read the comment in my head first. But he said it's strange. He's been on the dean's list every semester for the past 9 years in 3 different institutions. Can't be a complete moron. I don't think he was. I think he thought too much. I think that's why there's no blood, like a lot of that outside of the house. Like, I think that he was smart when it came to that. I think he got rid of the murder weapon myself. I think he was smart when he did that. I think it was just things that happened in the heat of the moment, like him leaving his knife, the sheath behind. I think that was just something that he didn't plan on. And it was just like, and after he was, I guess leaving the house, he didn't want to go back upstairs and grab it. Oh, let me turn this back up for you guys.
Bryan Kohberger, and his life of flying under the radar before allegedly murdering the 4 victims in Idaho. We now know a lot more about his backstory. After graduating from Pleasant Valley High School in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains in 2013, he would only venture about 35 miles to begin his college career. It's here at DeSales University in the Lehigh Valley where Kohberger would spend a significant portion of his 20s.
DeSales is kind of its own sort of campus outside of Bethlehem in a more rural area surrounded by a lot of cornfields and small neighborhoods.
In fact, it was the sort of small campus, less than 5,000 students, where a student could typically not enjoy the anonymity that one might be able to at nearby universities like Penn State. But Kohberger may have been the exception, as one former classmate remembered.
It's a very small school in a cornfield. So if you go there, you know most of the people within your study and pretty much everyone that goes to the school, and he was not known.
Known or not, Bryan Kohberger would wind up getting both his undergraduate and a graduate degree at DeSales in the studies of psychology and criminology, and that's where he came in contact with classmate Josh Ferraro, his future lab partner, who said this about Kohberger.
At that time, I would have never said, oh yeah, that guy would do something like this. He may have been a little odd or a little off, but like other than that, you'd never expect someone to be allegedly part of a quadruple homicide, ever.
And when Kohberger transitioned from undergraduate to graduate student at DeSales, he also switched from a major in psychology to a focus on criminal justice. While he had no official criminal record during his time as an undergrad and grad student, according to multiple reports, Kohberger would spend a lot of time at a bar called the Seven Sirens Brewing Company. According to interviews, he made multiple women uncomfortable to a point where a record of his interactions were kept, as his odd behavior was a concern to the staff. Now, being the creepy guy in a bar doesn't make him a killer, but the evidence that has come out was enough to change his former lab partner's mind.
God forbid if he didn't do it, great, but all the signs point to that he did. Unless this guy was miraculously set up, which is like a 1 in a billion chance, no one cares enough about Bryan Kohberger to set him up.
In fact, Ferraro goes on to say that he thinks their specific studies, what they studied, played a role in Kohberger's actions.
The course that I took that stands out is psychological sleuthing, where you basically enter the mind of a killer. She would give you sheets, and basically the sheets would denote and detail a crime. However, you wouldn't know who did what per se or where this was, but you'd have to, it was a group thing, so you'd get partnered up or in groups, and you would go through these activities and basically come up with a theory or a thesis.
And DeSales is known for its criminology studies.
They have an entire house, they call it the crime scene house, that is used for simulations for crime scene investigation or collecting evidence or crime scene photography or responding to other emergencies.
But on top of all of that, Bryan Kohberger's studies of the criminal mind didn't end at DeSales. Just months later, he'd moved cross-country and began his PhD studies at Washington State University. He'd even receive an appointment as a teaching assistant during the fall, the 2022 semester, but he reportedly be fired from that job over, quote, behavioral problems and having a sexist attitude towards women. Joining us now is Sierra Gillespie, a reporter for the Law and Crime Network, who did a terrific in-depth story, which uncovered a lot of new information about Kohberger's background. And back with us is Jesse Weber. Sierra, let me start with you. You spent a lot of time digging into his background. What surprised you most?
I think the most interesting thing about Bryan Kohberger is that he flew under the radar. So a lot of the people that I spoke with said that when they first heard the name Bryan Kohberger, when he was named a suspect in these murders, they thought, that name's kind of familiar to me, but who is that? How do I know him? Kohberger didn't really make a big mark on a lot of people when they had to go back into their memories from years ago and think, oh, I knew that guy. What they were thinking is that he was kind of odd. He was kind of off. He kept to himself. A lot of people told me that he was a loner throughout his entire collegiate studies. So that's something that's really interesting now that we're learning more about him.
So he's studying criminology at DeSales, and then he's studying it more at the University of Washington?
That is correct. So he studied his undergraduate and graduate degrees at DeSales, which really, you heard it there, has a very robust criminal justice program with some of the world-renowned professors. He studied there and then was working on his PhD in Washington. So really doubling down on learning more about this field.
All right, I want to play a piece of sound. This is from one of the neighbors in Washington talking about how he mentioned the murders, would be asking about them in the context of conversation. This is after the murders occurred, but of course before he was arrested.
He was like, oh, did you hear about these murders that happened? And it was like so short after they actually happened, like there was barely any news articles out. So there wasn't much that I could have like read. So I was like, yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, of course I've heard about him. And he was like, yeah, it seems like they don't have any leads. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's not much about it, you know? There's nothing, I have no details really to say.
That seems incredibly bold, Sierra. Is that another trait that was relevant here?
I don't know if I would necessarily call Bryan Kohberger bold. A lot of people said that he kept to himself, but in this case, maybe that was bold. I mean, you heard the neighbor right there. He said the murders had just happened. He hardly knew any information about it. And actually, they were kind of acquaintances. They didn't know each other that well. Chris Martinez, the neighbor, was actually kind of trying to take Kohberger under his wing because he was new to the area. But overall, it was kind of an interesting thing to bring up. And for Kohberger to say that he believed it was a crime of passion so early on, I guess you could say that it is bold.
Jesse, how much do you think of this background stuff is going to come into the case? Because, you know, there are going to be some people who are going to say, you know, who cares about this guy? I don't want to hear about his background. This guy's a accused killer. I don't want to know about it. But I do think it's relevant for prosecutors as they put this case together to help them figure out which direction to go, where to pursue, which warrants to get, et cetera.
I agree with you on that. I'm thinking what could come out in the trial.
Yeah.
Right? So any statements he makes after the murder would say possibly consciousness of guilt could come in. I'll tell you, I think it's interesting talking about what kind of relationships he had with women going back. And some would say, can't introduce that evidence. It's bad character evidence. But if you can try to say it's establishing a motive, maybe this was a guy that it was building up and something connected with the four victims to the problems that we're having in the past that could build a story that the judge would allow prosecutors to introduce. I think a lot of this other stuff is just interesting to find out who he is, how a complete stranger would be somehow a part of this. But I have to tell you, I do think whatever he says now moving forward, he's got to be very, very careful about it.
And I think, Sierra, what the prosecutors are trying to do is find evidence that he wasn't a complete stranger, right? They want to figure out ways to link him in some way, shape, or form to the victims.
I definitely agree. That's one of the big question marks that we have in this case. Did Kohberger know the victims? There's some rumors going around that he had ran into some of them at a place where they worked, a restaurant, or if he followed them on Instagram, also rumors of a potential stalker. I think that that's going to be a very important point that we make here. Did Kohberger know the victims? Was he stalking them? These are all very interesting things that hopefully we learn at the preliminary hearing, and if not then, likely the trial.
All right, Sierra Gillespie, really terrific reporting. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much.
Coming up, from a graduate student studying criminology to now an infamous murder suspect, what has life been like for Bryan Kohberger since his arrest? He's on a strict vegan diet. He apparently has no cellmates and an apparent...
Okay, so they're just going to commercial really quick. I was just going to go through the chat here. Yeah, I'm not sure what 1-2 is what they were saying, but I'm not sure what you mean. Shirley Harris said his car had to be full of evidence. I think so too. I think at least I can start the camera. I think at least his, like maybe the gas pedal, the brake pedal, the seat belt maybe could have gotten blood. The steering wheel, next to your cell phone, they say that your steering wheel is the dirtiest thing that you interact with, every day. And I can totally see that because you go into different stores, you go to different places, and a lot of people don't ever really think to clean their steering wheel off. So he may have, I don't know. His car didn't look like it was cleaned when it was pulled over, but they did say that they saw him cleaning it, I guess, when he was in Pennsylvania. He was definitely book smart, not street smart. That's what we said here on the channel when we were first talking about, we first found out Bryan Kohberger had his degree in criminology. Trying to go back through the chat a little bit. Yeah, so Kaylee moved in. I'm not sure exactly when she moved in, but I know that they have the body cam footage was released and it showed her on August 16th, I believe it was. And then I believe that he started circulating the house or like that area on the 22nd of August. So, and Legendary CEO, I can't believe you saw that. I didn't even notice that I switched the hitting the like button or the words, oh my lordy. I was like, I need a nap. And the other day it was Monday. It was actually National Nap Day. I didn't even take a nap. Did I see Margot? Oh, there she is. I'm like, did I see Margot come in? Let's see. I don't know what happened between the hours before Ellie was called. For me, for some reason, the way that the PCA is worded, it says that Dylan stated that she originally went to sleep on the second floor. And I don't know why it says originally, because I'm thinking maybe after she saw the guy, she just went straight downstairs, didn't even look over. Like, maybe didn't look to the left, just went straight down the stairs and went to Bethany's room. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. That's just kind of maybe how I was thinking, maybe. So that's what I was thinking. Oh, yeah. No, I love when people come in and they don't have like the same exact, thought as everybody. I love that. It just gets out of control when you have people come in and they're just like, they'll text something in the chat and they're like, it was drugs. And then we'll say, well, okay, well, why? And they'll go, it was drugs. And it's like, okay, then, So it's always like, okay, then. You question that too? Yeah. So I'm wondering maybe that's what, because I've been reading this PCA more. The more and more I read it, the more and more I should just put it down. It's like, oh my gosh, I might have to just go through the PCA again with you guys and just have a conversation about it. Let's see. Hey, Princess Mega Elsa. I love your little avatar thing there. I don't know what they're called. Are they emojis, avatars? I don't know. I like it either way. I need to change mine up. I like the difference in opinions too. Me too. And I like it that it doesn't get crazy up in here usually. Usually. Here, let me go and turn this back up for you guys.
On a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zena, Madison, and Kaylee.
Since December 30th, 2022, when Moscow, Idaho Police Chief James Fry announced that Bryan Kohberger had been arrested in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, he's been behind bars. 5 days later, January 4th, arrives in Idaho, where with the exception of court appearances, he's remained inside a Moscow, Idaho jail awaiting trial. So what's life looked like for Bryan Kohberger over the course of the last few months, going from a graduate student and sometimes even teaching assistant studying criminology to an infamous murder suspect? He's currently being held in the maximum security portion of the 2,000 square foot Latah County Jail, which in its basement has him segregated from all others. NewsNation has learned that this portion of the jail is just 4 cells, and that 3 of them are currently empty. So Kohberger may find himself a lonely man these days, both literally and figuratively. But a source with intimate knowledge of Kohberger's life inside jail tells NewsNation that he's quiet, does as he's told, makes no trouble. They went so far as to say, quote, he does not seem like a psychopath. Joining us now, NewsNation senior national correspondent Bryan Enton, and back with us is Jesse Weber. All right, so Bryan, you have been at the forefront of the NewsNation reporting on this. Tell us a little bit more about what we know about his time in jail.
Well, first of all, Dan, I think when people hear county jail, they might think it's, a big place. This is a very, very small jail. You mentioned it, 2,000 square feet. It's right underneath the courtroom. There are only 3 guards, we're told, that work there at a time, a couple of dozen inmates. Most of the inmates are kept together in one portion of the jail. Kohberger is kept in another section. He's in a cell by himself. He doesn't get out much, a little bit of exercise. Every time he's taken out, he's escorted either by 1 or 2 guards. He does have a TV, we found out, Dan. He has a number of channels, basic cable. He can change the channel to whatever channel that he wants to. The other inmates share a TV, but Kohberger has his own TV because he's sort of in his own little section of this small jail in a cell over to the side, Dan.
So we had said, though, that he had no other cellmate and that no one else was in the cells next to him. So explain that to us. If there's a TV in another part of the jail, you mean completely separate from these 4 cells we were just talking about?
Yeah, so there's a TV for the other inmates, and then Kohberger has his own TV because he's being kept separate. He's about 30 feet from where the other inmates are, I'm told. So they can sometimes hear what he's watching on TV, but they don't really see him very much. He doesn't come out of the cell very much. He does go to Mass on Sundays, we're told. Basically, they get some chairs together and there's a Mass on Sundays, and he does come to that Mass and sit there, but he doesn't have any other dialogue with the other inmates, and then after Mass, he goes back to his cell.
What's this business about him being obsessed with media coverage of his case?
So we are told that, he has the TV and he can pick the channel, and we're told that oftentimes he has the news on when it is stories regarding his case, and that he is watching those stories in his cell.
Also, he's got a very strict diet.
Yeah, he's vegan. He's been vegan for quite a while, Dan. You remember the story his aunt talked about before the arrest. He would only eat on special pots and pans that had never touched meat. So they are accommodating his vegan diet in jail. They're not going to that extreme. I mean, they're not cooking on special pots and pans, but we're told they are giving him, vegetables, rice and beans. They're trying to accommodate it, but not going to the full-on extreme of, cooking everything separately.
Right, and Jesse, this is the kind of jail he would sit in until he was convicted or acquitted.
Correct, and it doesn't seem like he's getting out anytime soon. Before we know we have the preliminary hearing, and then the trial's going to take some time. I got to tell you one thing, though. I don't think the idea of him watching television is the biggest thing. Because assuming he's innocent, wouldn't somebody want to watch everything that's happening?
Yeah, I don't think it makes him guilty. I just think I think all the other evidence is very incriminating, but I don't think that watching TV makes him,
I'll play devil's advocate, because the other way is looking, if he did do this, and he wanted the attention of it, then this is exactly what he wanted, eating it up, because we're still trying to understand what the motive would be if he allegedly did this.
Yeah, and that, of course, is a critical thing that is yet to be determined precisely. Bryan Enton, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Jesse Weber, as always, thank you.
Good seeing you.
Coming up, we have not forgotten the 4 young people who were taken in these killings. I have spent a lot of time talking about Bryan Kohberger. I get it that some of you are going to think we spent too much time talking about Bryan Kohberger. So we want to give the last words tonight to their families, and that is exactly what we are going to do when we come back.
How's he gonna give it to the families? Are they coming on the TV? Are the families coming on the TV or something? Because the way he said that sounded like it, but they're not. I don't think they are, but I do love that they are doing this at the end. I was just trying to find a cute clip for you guys because I don't like to leave it, at the end of the live with him myself. Oh, Isabel said, I feel sorry for the priest who takes his mass. Yeah, as they can't say if he tells them anything. If he has confessed, then priest hands are tied. I guess the courts can try to fight it, but there's no judge in this world that's going to probably want to touch that. You know what I mean? Like if I was that judge, no, sirree, I'm not going to be standing at the pearly gates being asked about this, But it's just so crazy. And when you're in the clink, not much to do but reflect on your mistakes and seek God and seek out that 1 hour extra a day that you can get out of that cell. You'll do anything. You'll do just about anything. Imagine you're just in there. And when they talk about him like watching TV, and they're like, oh my God, he's a psychopath because he watches his own shows or his own news segments. I would be too. I would be watching anything that had to do with me because I would be wanting to know what people are saying. I mean, then again, I'd be throwing myself at the mercy of, I'd be on my cell every night screaming that I didn't do it. And he's pretty cool, calm and collected, which that was another thing I wanted to go over tonight. The way that he, the way that he is compared to the way that Dylan saw him that night. Because I feel like she did see one and the same. Because the way that she described him, just kind of like walking past her, just didn't say a word, didn't do anything. That's kind of like his look, death stare, just in life. And I was looking at his pictures, and I guess he doesn't really look that smaller in some of those. What else did I want to say before that came back on? I want to know, in the house, how did he know where to go? So if you know that house, you've seen that layout, it's so crazy. If you see where Dylan Mortensen's bedroom is, when you come around that corner, there's a step you go down. How did he not fall down that step? Or how did he not trip coming up it? To me, that's like, even if you looked on like Zillow or you took you'd have to literally have to be in that home to know that step was there. Even Zillow doesn't do a good, accurate description of that step. Do you know what I'm talking about? The step that's, if you're coming around, see Dylan's room here, if you come around and you're going towards Zana's room. See, that's what I thought, looked up pictures when his friend, he must have just had better eye than me. Because I would have tripped, and I do have one eye, so that could be why I would trip over that one step. But for sure, I would trip over that step. I know they had that little good vibes sign right there, so it illuminated a little bit. So maybe it illuminated it just enough. And maybe that's why they kind of placed that sign there to illuminate that little step. But I think you think Bryan did trip on the step? Oh, and maybe that's why he didn't see Dylan. Jeff, you make a good point. Maybe he had his head down. Because I do that. I walk with my head down a lot to make sure I don't trip over steps. Oh, they could have been night vision, yeah. But the thing is, that whole house was so lit up, you could see everything inside. And they didn't know. And someone said it perfectly. They said they were sitting ducks. And I'm like, they really were. Because they were kind of alone in that area, right there. They weren't alone, but that house was just so big. And then it was just kind of off to the side. And with the lights, I don't know. Yeah, he's reportedly very able-bodied. Yeah. And you could tell when you looked at him, I thought he looked like he was probably 6 foot. They said 6 foot, I think they said he was. I thought he was about 6 foot, 200. That sounds about right. Drip Drop said that, she said Drip Drop was saying something similar. I'd face plant on that every day, even though it was there. Yeah, no, me too. Yeah, no, I really would. I still think I would too. Oh, here's some older interviews, I think. We actually did these on my live. Oh.
He's a good kid. Kind to all.
Didn't deserve what happened.
No.
I broke down and I just cried. I could only takes so much of that. And I just, if I had one or two words to describe Maddie Mae, it would be just an angel, and that she just made me proud.
Deanna she was tough. She was strong. She was funny. She just couldn't make you smile no matter what. And she just had a quirkiness about her that not a lot of people possess, that kind of talent to be able to light up a room like she did.
You never think you're going to lose your little sister. Ever. You never think you're going to have to bury your daughter.
I don't think I'll ever get over losing one of my children. That will never go away. I don't think that the grief ever gets any better, really. I just think that she would want all of us to live our best life and remember the good things about her.
Her only real big relationship she had in her life was with Jake, who is such a great guy, and I'm so glad that she got to just have at least a little taste of what it's like to be in love with someone. Maybe someday, maybe they would have gotten married, It seemed like it at least, but...
I expected to feel just this immense amount of hate, and I'm sure that will come. I think that I'm a little bit in shock still, but looking at him, I just felt nothing. I mean, I just looked at him like, and I couldn't take my eyes off of him, his every moment, and I just could not believe that he has done what he has done. And I had a sick feeling for sure. It was very emotional, but on the other hand, I just was numb.
Justice doesn't have a room where you can read books and you can go to school and you can have 3 meals and you can have your vegan diet. To me, that's not justice. Justice is when you leave the planet and the whole world is able to rejoice and be glad that you are not there.
That is all sound from the families of those who were killed. And it is important to note that they're not allowed to speak out publicly right now. So those are all older pieces of sound. Back with us is Bryan Enton, who's actually been in regular contact with many of these families. Bryan, I already talked about the fact the families are frustrated, at least some of them. They can't speak out publicly about this case. But in general, how are they holding up, and are they getting ready for this next phase in this case, which will be the preliminary hearing?
Yeah, I think there's confusion with the gag order with the family members, Dan, because it's a little bit unclear about whether it actually impacts them. So I think they're trying to respect it and not speak right now, but hoping that the judge will clarify exactly what it means for them. But yeah, behind the scenes, I mean, this has just been an awful hell for them. We all get so caught up, myself included sometimes, in the nitty-gritty of the court case and all the little new details that come out. But for them, they're just still missing their loved ones and trying to move on with life as best they can. A lot of them have other kids that they're trying to take care of, and yet they still wake up to this nightmare every single day.
And I would expect that they will be there, right, for the preliminary hearing when it happens in June?
Yeah, we know at least most of them do plan to be there. They're obviously in very close contact with the prosecutor, who lets them know which hearings are important for them to be at and which ones they don't have to go through the emotional turmoil of actually. I mean, imagine they're in the courtroom with Bryan Kohberger. I mean, it's awful, and it's a small courtroom, so they're like 5 feet away. But we do expect them to be there for the preliminary hearing.
Bryan Enton, thank you very much. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks.
That does it for us tonight. Have a good weekend. Mansfield starts it.
I'm just watching to see what she'll say. Actually, I can watch it on my TV because she's going to say something probably. Well, she looks refreshed. What is she saying? Is she saying that she has an exclusive on the Idaho? I'm going to text Vincent real quick. I'm going to say what she's saying. I'll ask him if it's anything new because he's been watching. I'm just like, because I was surprised that she didn't say something. Why does she have her iPad or her laptop in her hand? It says Idaho student murders, new court documents expected any minute. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we could watch that if you guys want to. Do you guys want to watch that? I can put it back up really quick. She said that there's going to be new documents coming out any minute. Like, what time is it? Hold on. Sorry. Because I'm like, I would just be watching it anyway. Let me put it back on. Because it's just for a minute anyway of it.
To see if that dump happens. So that's one of the big things we're watching.
Oops, sorry.
Also, if you are counting
I'm counting. We are, 2 weeks away from Lori Vallow's trial starting. 16 days and a few hours. And that is big because there's still so much that needs to be decided. I think we're only 5-6 days away from the judge making a decision on the death penalty, on the eve of trial. And all of those motions that her lawyers said, look, we're not ready. There's just way too much stuff that's getting dumped on us, hours and hours, hundreds and thousands of hours of calls and pages that we have to get through. And we may not be able to get through in time for the trial. So there's still so much that could happen. It's a bit traumatic, legally speaking. And if you're a legal nerd, you're going to love that stuff. I love it. Then also tonight, you may have heard us report earlier this week on a suitcase murder. And no, I'm not talking about the Sarah Boone one where she was taunting him and videotaping the suitcase while he's begging her, Sarah, I can't breathe. It is another one. And this one is equally devastating in the fact that it's a woman whose son discovered her. And this is a young son. And apparently had friends over as well. So the woman's brother is going to talk to me tonight because there's still a lot of mystery around this case. What happened to the son who's looking after him? My God, the kind of counseling he's going to need having discovered his mother dead in a suitcase and her boyfriend is charged. So that's all coming ahead on this program. Let's get to Bryan Kohberger inside the Latah County Jail. Got a few more details for you. And this is very specific, and it comes from the very top, a top source within the Latah County Jail telling me, specifically this afternoon, the layout is a bit unique, and there's more detail to it than I thought. Those 4 cells in the max, one of them occupied by Bryan Kohberger, the other 3 are vacant. They are in their own entire, room, and they are separated from the other inmates by multiple walls and doors. And there is no other human being in that same lockup area as Bryan. So he is not only in isolation in his own cell behind his own bars, but that whole area is vacant of any humanity. So he is truly alone. If he talks, nobody can hear him. But if he yells, at the top of his voice, it isn't as though the folks who are in those pods or the guards wouldn't be able to hear him. They actually might. If you're in your house and you're in the bottom floor and you yell up to the master bedroom on the far side of the house, somebody might be able to hear you yell, but you sure aren't having a conversation with them. And that is how this has been described to me. So he is so solitary, he can talk all he wants and no one can hear him. But there is a camera trained on him at all times. This is what my sources told me. And that the suicide watch that he was on when he got there only lasted for a couple of days. He is not on suicide watch now, but he is checked regularly. And do you remember the clothing? That right there, that green, I describe it like a moving quilted blanket. They wrap it around your piano and your other precious things, your furniture. That's what that stuff's made out of because you can't tie it in a knot and hang yourself. So that's called a suicide vest. They don't have that. At the Latah County lockup, they don't have it. That was what he got in Pennsylvania. And if he arrived in anything like that, it was because he was wearing it in Pennsylvania, got on the plane, and he's not wearing it now. He, I'm told, is wearing the exact same thing as every other inmate in that lockup. Jail garb. That's it. Same as the other inmates. No different. Pretty interesting stuff. Okay, so security, super interesting that if you think about like transporting him to trial, we always imagine that somebody who's this high, profile and despised, right? Like despised globally. If you just look at some of the writings about this guy, that's dangerous. Transporting him like this is dangerous. They'll often put you in a flak vest, but there will be no need for that. When Bryan Kohberger is going to make his court appearances, he's not going outside. There will be no van. He literally will be taken upstairs to the courthouse and then right back downstairs to his max security lonely cell. So what you see basically is what you get. There will be no danger in the outside community. And anybody who comes inside that courthouse goes through magnetometers and, will not have any kind of dangerous stuff on their person. Okay, checking my list, got everything there. Yes. All right. So now I want to move on to the court documents, because one of the reasons that we're so interested in what the document dump is going to be like is because we took a really deep dive through last week's document dump to look at the timeline, because they didn't just throw a whole bunch of warrants out there on the very same day and then wait for everything to come back. The bouncing ball is actually kind of intriguing. Warrants were issued, and when material came back from the subpoenas, new warrants were sent out. So basically the investigation from the first set of warrants set them on a trail, kind of like a treasure hunt. And that sent them to new places to look for and to subpoena. And the subpoenas started right after the murders, right? November 13th, the murders. But those subpoenas were going out in January too. So based on what they got early from the early warrants, they were able to figure out, a new vein to mine, and they would go off. And so I want to go through some of them with you, because you might start seeing interesting patterns and definitely where their head was at and who they thought the target was. So let's just start. Well, you already know that warrants went out and we got them about the WSU apartment of Bryan Kohberger, his parents' home, his car, and his person. They gave us a lot of that redacted, right? That came out early. But now all those major companies that were subpoenaed that came out last week, like Amazon and Tinder and DoorDash and Snapchat and Walmart, a lot of it came back and it was really redacted, 750 pages, which is why I've got a team in place if it happens again to try to read as many as we can within this hour. But the 750 pages were redacted, but this is what we could figure out. It was not just Bryan Kohberger that they were investigating. Some of the earliest warrants that went out were actually for the victims and what their lives were like. So they went after PayPal, Venmo, and Square accounts on November 19th. That's just 6 days after the murders, right? They also went after banking records of the 4 victims, and that was November 28th. So just within weeks of the murders, they're checking the life of the victims, but they're not checking any Bryan Kohberger or any kind of, stuff that we know now, like in hindsight. They didn't maybe have it at that point. 6 days after the murders, however, they went after, and that's November 19th, they went after the exterior surveillance footage from the Umpqua Bank branch it's on Washington Street in downtown Moscow. Now, why is that important? Good question. There's the building. Happens to be about 1,000 feet from the grub truck. So they now knew about the grub truck. Possibly they had that information from getting, the bank records, how they paid at the grub truck. And they were able to now look at the exact site from those cameras at this, Kaylee and Maddie getting this last meal as they were headed home from the bar just hours before they were murdered. On November 20th, that's 7 days after the murders, police requested all the social media account information for the 4 victims. And here's the big lump of companies they were after: Apple, Snapchat, and Meta, which is the parent company, those 2 bottom ones, Facebook and Insta. And so clearly they're now looking at, okay, who are you guys all talking to? And they wanted the information from social media from August through November. So just a couple of months, right? August of last year through November when the murders happened. But interestingly, they requested Meta, the 2 bottom ones, Facebook and Insta. They've requested information for 3 additional people, and they redacted the names. Was Bryan Kohberger one of them? We don't know. Maybe boyfriends of the girls in the house? Don't know. but they asked for 3 more people's social media information from the Meta accounts, okay? Now, number 2, the police. Obviously, they found the sheath of the knife next to the body, so that started right away. The origin of the murder weapon was like priority 1 in the very first week, maybe even before BK, Bryan Kohberger, was on their radar. They issued warrants in late November, so within the first week and a half, on K-bar sales all across the country, from Walmart, from eBay, and from the K-bar manufacturer itself. And in mid-December, so now you're looking at about 4 weeks after the murders, they were subpoenaing a company called Blue Ridge Knives. That's a K-bar wholesaler. And they wanted the sales that went all the way back to January of 2022. So that would be like, almost 11 months worth of, like 10 and a half months worth of K-bar sales. And they wanted ones that had the USMC insignia on the leather sheath. Let me grab it for you right here. I think you've probably seen my example of it. I don't know if you can see it really clearly. I have it with the knife in it, but you can see the insignias on the sheath, the USMC, United States Military Corps. So they were looking for leather sheaths with a specific inquiry for about 840 of these units. And they wanted the ones that were bought between March and July of last year. That's interesting. Why? Like, why March and July of last year? What did they know? Why were they zeroing in on March and July, all of the 840 units of these K-bar knives and sheaths? So there's like a missing link there. Hopefully this new document dump we're waiting for tonight might elucidate a little bit more. This is where I find things getting more fascinating, because in the early days, remember back after November 13th, when the police said, nothing to see here, nothing to worry about, it's a targeted attack, the community's not in danger. That freaked us all out, because it's like, then where's your arrest? Because somebody did this and they're not in handcuffs. This is fascinating. Kaylee was, it seems without question, the focus of their investigation, because they requested her social media information from those accounts before they requested it from any other victim. So 4 victims, but they only requested Kaylee's social media. November 29th, right through till mid-December, warrants were sent out to Tinder and Reddit and Google and Yahoo for Kaylee's account information only. They wanted the Tinder and Reddit information going all the way back, ready for this, to January of 2021. Almost 2 full years of that. They were going to go back all the way to January of 2021. So they asked for all that for Kaylee. So she was without question a big focus. They wanted to get her Google and her Yahoo information from August, just before the murders, right through just those 3 months, August until after the murders, a week after the murders. And then they also wanted Kaylee's cloud data from a company called Extreme Networks. And the only other Tinder profiles that they subpoenaed were for Maddie Mogan. They did that on December 5th. Bryan Kohberger. But guess what? They did not ask for Bryan Kohberger's until January 25th. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, and I just want to remind you again that at any moment, I'm still refreshing and looking to see if there's any change in these documents, because the Idaho courts just kind of go, they don't tell you, they just throw them up on the site and no big announcements. So, all right, one other thing that I want to let you know about, and this is my team, by the way, this is my team. They're all refreshing and looking through things as well. Thanks, guys. Thank you for working late on a Friday night, but they have all agreed to divide and conquer the moment that those documents are dropped onto the site. It happened late on Friday night last week, so I am not going to let it happen again this week. All right, I also wanted to tell you one other thing. The gag order. A lot of you have been wondering, why are these documents dropping if there's a gag order? And that is an excellent question. Here's the way I see it. You can't gag everything. You absolutely cannot gag everything, because in America, we have a transparent system of jurisprudence. And thank God for that, because you could live in Saddam Hussein's Iraq and have blind justice and hooded gulags. We don't do it that way. But we also want to protect, an accused's right to a fair trial. So there's a real delicate balance there. And we just don't know at this point if that might be why they're looking through those documents. And then they are assessing this is not a danger to the investigation any longer. It's not a danger to any of our sources. This is fair game and it's free to go. So I would like to say that I know that, but I don't because I'm not a lawyer. But Richard Block is. He's an Idaho criminal defense attorney, and he's kind enough to join me tonight. So, Richard, am I way off base in saying that they are, in the criminal courts of Idaho, they are trying their best to remain pristine to the gag order principles, but at least try to be transparent as well, which is the American way?
I think you're actually spot on that one. This is a delicate balance that the judges are playing here, and that the Supreme Court's going to be playing in not too long, because of course we have that case going on as well, where they're trying to balance this fair trial versus the public's right to know issue. Because the issue is, what we don't want to do is we don't want to have a jury pool that thinks they've already learned a bunch of stuff about the case, that has already made a decision, that already, believes this guy is guilty. You want as neutral a jury pool as possible. In the perfect world, you would, before the case even started, hide them all in a room and just let them wait until it was time for trial and put them up there.
Wait, which perfect world are you talking about? Because when I was in, Iraq, that's what they did. In fact, can I just tell you, I was arrested going into Iraq, and I was thrown in a room for an entire day, and they took my phone, and they wouldn't let, my team contact NBC to let them know that we were safe. And that's the way. And by the way, it wasn't the only time it happened. It happened in Lebanon. It happened in Saudi Arabia. It happened in Iraq. I'd have to go over my files to see if that, but I mean, that was kind of par for the course. And I am really thankful that we just don't do it that way here.
Well, yeah. And we have and this is the, two of our biggest constitutional protections is our free press, right? And of course, as you mentioned, our open jurisprudence system and our jury system, right? And that the due process rights and those fair trial rights, and those sometimes come into conflict. And finding that balance is a really difficult thing for courts, particularly in cases like this where there is a lot of publicity. That is a tough balance to find. So
it is. Can I ask you though, in your state, have you had a case that has been affected by a gag order in any way, or was affected because it didn't have a gag? Have you got any, tangible evidence that, oh man, we sure messed up on that last one, ain't going to happen again in Idaho?
I don't know that there's anything like that I'm aware of, and I'm sure, judges, when they're doing this, we're talking about due process rights, and we're talking about, First Amendment rights. We're talking about, and of course, right to a speedy and public trial, public being part of that, is, again, an important due process right, that it is public. I think that we're looking nationally at these kinds of issues, because these are big, U.S. constitutional rights, as well as rights in the Idaho Constitution. I think everybody has had a case where they think that there's been too much publicity, and everybody, and that is always a worry. And we're also always just worried that jurors are going to see a guy, in handcuffs, in a prison jumpsuit, and go, well, that guy's guilty.
Do you know what, though? I hear that all the time. I hear the complaints. I hear really mean people who comment on social media. And I just would love to scream back at them. I have 3 words for you: OJ, Casey, Robert Blake. Those are people who were splayed all over the news, and they were acquitted. So I feel as though if you're good at your job, and judges typically are, and so are opposing counsel, and they're able to exercise their cause and peremptory strikes, they can pick a jury that can be fair and unbalanced despite what they've seen or heard on the TV or on the soch. Let me ask you one more question, though, about what I just laid out. All the stuff, I presume you could hear the top of the show where I was telling about all the warrants and the bouncing ball. Does it tell you anything, like the fact that it appeared it was Kaylee who was the target at first, and then it was only Maddie and Bryan Kohberger on the Tinder accounts, etc. Do you see a direction here? Do you see where they're going and what they're finding?
I think it's definitely too early to see where they're going, what they're finding. There were a couple of the warrants to Match.com that were where we didn't have a name on them, so we're not sure who they were looking for as well. But I think that it's clear that Kaylee, I think Miss Gonclaves is the last name, is someone who they were looking into. They're trying to see who she's connected to. Right at this point, very early on in the case, they're trying to connect all these little dots because they have, when it first happened, obviously they had so very little information, and they're trying to figure out what happened. So they're looking not only at the social media, but of course the banking records, right? Where did they go? Where did they spend their money? If you follow around a person's debit card purchases, you get a pretty good idea of where they've been through the day.
And they were both, killed first as well. It begs, just reminding people of that as well. Richard, it's really great to have you in Idaho to help us sort of, navigate the state. Every state has very little tweaky differences in their laws and how they, do things. So I appreciate you. Thank you for this, especially on a Friday night.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have you back again as well. And I just want to remind our viewers, I'm still refreshing. I think my team is still tired of me asking them to work on a Friday night late so that they can read documents, but no, they're all scowling. I'm so sorry, but I so appreciate you guys. You will have extra Christmas baskets this year. Thank you for doing this, everybody. So they're going to stay on it, and I'm going to bring you the documents just as soon as they drop, everyone. I promise you. And in just a little over 2 weeks from now, reminder, Doomsday Mom Lori Vallow.
Okay. I don't think that I think that she's not gonna probably have them tonight, but I was wanting to see if I wanted to at least go through till she was going to start talking about Lori, but that's just another mess of a story. So I guess they're waiting on more documents to come out, which I didn't know that, but why would I? I had no reason to know that. I have been on the Idaho. Here, let me share this tab with you guys. So if you guys want to look as well, and then I can turn this off. I'll look up at the TV, see if there's anything that flashes. So basically, if you guys ever want to get on here to look up anything on Bryan Kohberger, the state of Idaho Judicial Branch has their very own page for him, just kind of like they did Moscow. So just as state of Idaho Judicial Branch, and then state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. It says the case was updated today, but there's nothing new in there. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom, it's still saying 3-8. So I don't know if they would come out this late, but she said last time they came out this late. So maybe they were just trying to sneak them in on us or something. They want the death penalty off of Lori. That's what I heard. And I think that that's just ridiculous. Oh my Lord. We need to do a live on her. I've done so many videos that are coming out. So I did, if you guys haven't seen them, let me go to, sorry, I'm gonna have to go to my page to tell you, because I've been doing so many pre-recorded videos, just trying to get you guys some more content in between the lives, especially if a lot of people can't watch like the live. I've been trying to split them up a little bit for you guys. And then I'm adding in new cases as well. So we already saw so I had last weekend, I came out with 2 videos on Letitia Stouch and the Gannon Stouch case. So if you wanted to watch those, I would really appreciate that, because it does help every little, like or view helps send it out to the algorithm. Her case is getting ready to be going to court here soon. Also, I did a video on Leilani Simon. I did an update video on her, and I did a video on Sarah Boone. That's the woman that's accused of locking her boyfriend in a suitcase during a game of hide and go seek. That's another case that's beyond me. Then I did just a couple I did a lot of Bryan Kohberger updates, just scheduled ones. Because I was splitting up the lives So if you guys see those, they'll be there. And then let me see. I did do a Shanquilla Robinson update today, so that'll be out on Sunday. And then I also did a new one about roommates. These two roommates, they went missing on the same day. I did a video on them, and that'll be coming out on the 19th. So stuff for you guys to watch if you want to subscribe, follow the channel. When Fairy Lori Vallow almost makes me want to commit a crime just so I can get in a cell with her. I know. She seems so entitled. Like with the makeup, the dress, the toenail polish. How is she getting all this stuff up in jail? I have never heard of anybody painting their toes in jail. Prison, maybe. You go to the prison salon. Jail, I've never heard of it. They must have a really good jail over there. It's just crazy, isn't it? Yeah, Monday starts jury. Oh, okay, so I need to get on that. Monday starts the jury selection. Wow, that's already, oh man. I wanted to do it before jury selection, but there's just so much to go over. I'm going to go over it on Sunday. We're just going to have to do, we'll do a few lives on, of course, but I'll give you guys what I know. Because it's just so much. Sarah Boone, in case you'll be attending that one, we'll make sure that you get us anything you can get us. Get us the goods, because I want to know about that Sarah Boone. I personally, and I said this in my video, Jennifer Coffendorfer said manslaughter, I say first degree. I think it was that that one? No, that wasn't that one. What was that one? There was something about it. I think that was that case, because I feel like she had every right. She could have got him out of that suitcase at any point in time. Like at any point in time, she could have unzipped that bad boy. But instead, she recorded it for a little while, taunted him for a little more. Then she went to bed. Like, I don't care. Okay, first off, who's going to hide? Okay, if you're playing hide and go seek at 42 years old, I don't know what you're doing with your life. I mean, personally, I'm sorry. If you're not playing with your kids and you're playing with your significant other, hiding each other, then I don't know. But who hides together? Who helps hide the person? Who are you going to go seek then? If you know the hiding spot, honey. You know the hiding spot, Sarah. If you're putting them in the suitcase and you're zipping it up and you're saying, buddy, we play hide and go seek. Now I'm going to go around the corner and count to 10. And then I'm going to come back and find you. Is that what she was saying? Like, I just don't even. How does she get him in the damn suitcase? And because I can see this. He looked like a small guy. I'm not as small. Well, here, let me turn my camera back on. I'm not as small as I was. Yeah, I didn't put my hair up because it was bothering me. But I'm not as small as I used to be. But I used to be incredibly small, to the point where I could have definitely fit in that suitcase. Like, I could have even seen me and Vincent doing that, like him putting me in a suitcase. The difference is Vincent would let me out. I would hope so. And don't most suitcases have it where there's a double zipper, like one on the inside, one on the out? Or am I just thinking things? But yeah, she's a complete waste. I mean, like, I don't even know. Like, and then she comes out of the house, and that's what we got to watch that. When she comes out of the house and she's talking to the police about it, she seems like nonchalant to me. She doesn't seem hysterical to me. If that was me and I locked my boyfriend or significant other in a suitcase and he died, you would see me on the ground, paramedics, arms flailing, face red. I would be all over the place. Yeah, Stouch case isn't televised. Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll just do nightly recaps of that case. Yeah, I'd be so haunting her if I was left in a suitcase too, Dino. And then I don't know if you guys have seen the video. It's on my, I think I play it on my video, but he's begging her to get out. Like, oh gosh, it just hurts my ears thinking about it. So what I'm thinking it was something stupid. Like they were drunk and she probably said, "Hey, I bet you could fit in this suitcase." Like, cause he was pretty small compared to her. I think he was smaller than her. Like from what I'm like gathering, like some guys are just smaller than their girlfriends. I think that was like one of them. So yeah, the video, so I have a video for that case on my playlist. I look under videos. I just did the video like last week or this week. So it's there if you want to see it's like a timeline, and then I think I show the video of him in there, a little bit of it, but it's very disturbing. Used to babysit for a lady who worked at a prison. I know a lot of people that worked in a prison. I grew up in a town that had 2 prisons in it. And they were right beside my elementary school. Who does that? Oh, thank you, Summer. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you guys. Oh, thank you for being the best. Thank you guys for being here. Sarah Boone case, yeah. Oh, my Lord, Sarah Boone. Like who? I just don't get the hide and go seek. Like who hides together? There was no hide and go seek. So, right, I just don't understand her. Okay, I have that. I thought I had it wrote down. I didn't write it down. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. That's not good. Because I know that their cases start, I think, a week apart or something like that. So I think she did toss him down the stairs. If she didn't toss him down the stairs, Kelly D, then I think that she at least flipped him over when it was downstairs. Yeah. He was telling her I couldn't breathe. Oh my God. And then she is just laughing about it. That's how I felt when you cheated on me. But they had back and forth domestic violence stuff. So she can't be screaming and crying that bull crap now. I'm sorry, but you cannot lock your boyfriend in a suitcase, kill him, and then say, yeah, I did that because I felt like I was in jeopardy. Because as soon as he was locked up in the suitcase, she wasn't in jeopardy anymore. Do you get what I'm saying? She could have left the house. She could have fled. She could have called the police. If it was battered wife crap, you're not going to do that. You're not playing that card here. Not in this court. Not in the court of Tanya's opinion. Are we doing that one? It's bad. She went to bed and she left him. Yep, you are right. That's what she said. There's no allegedly. That's what she said. She said on camera to the cops. I went to bed. I woke up the next day. The lady goes, you woke up when? Because this is at like 12:30, 1 o'clock by the time the cops are there. She said, I woke up around 11:30, but I didn't go downstairs till about 12:30, about an hour later. Okay. I don't know if you guys sleep with your significant other every night, if you have one or whatever, but I sleep with mine every night. And if I were to wake up in the morning and he wasn't laying beside me, the first thing out of my mouth would be, Vincent, where you at, Vincent? Just because I'd be curious. Because I'm like, where's the cat at? He's always here, you know what I mean? Because I usually wake up first. But I'd be like, where's he at? If he didn't come back or if it was like 10 minutes, I'm like, well, where's he at? Like, we don't have that big of a house. Sure, they don't have that big of a house. Yes, justice for Gannon. I feel so bad for these kids too. I don't like it when kids are involved. It really gets me. Hey, Dreamcatcher. I saw a new name. I was like, what? Hey, Pin Dizzy. I didn't even see you in here either. Yeah, and then she said I only left him half hour. Oh my God. And then I think she said she tried to resuscitate him, which I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe that. And I mean, even what's cold and calculating is she didn't know what he looked like. Probably, this is a guess. I'm going to guess. She probably didn't know what he looked like up until the point that she called police. That's when she probably unzipped it for the first time, I think. But because wouldn't you be more hysterical even just seeing a dead body? Just seeing a dead person that you care about? Even if you did that to them. Couldn't you muster up some tears? I don't know. Delphi is coming up. I have that one wrote down, I think, March 26th. Unless they changed it again, which I don't know if they did. So I wonder if she remembers it or not, because do you think she could forget that, being that drunk? Do you think you can get that drunk? Because she really was just like, gave him her cell phone, like no questions asked. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, like, I don't want to give you that. Like, she really did. But yeah, we just went to one case into the other, but But I am going to jump off of here. I've been on here for 2.5 hours. That's such a long time. We haven't done that one in a while. But I think that we will, so that's what I was going to tell you guys. So at the end of Dan Abrams' broadcast, they did they did the Idaho 4. They did the nice things for the tributes for the victims. So on this channel, we went through all of the interviews for Maddie, Zaina, and Ethan, and we never did do the ones for Kaylee. So I wanted to do a video just based on their interviews to see if we heard anything new or, and it's just, it was nice hearing the interviews again, just hearing them, just how they care about, their kids and stuff. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow, or I know we're going to definitely do the Nancy Grace podcast that just came out. Yeah, all these cases are going to be going on at once. It's going to be crazy. So it's just going to be insane. Yeah. Oh yeah, Pendizzy, Gannon's stepmom, she wants apologies for when Gannon comes back. Oh man. Evil stepmother isn't even the word. No, we're talking about Gannon. That's what I was talking about. And I'm talking about Sarah Boone. So sorry if I get them switched, because they both were actually found in suitcases. So I didn't really realize it. So, that I was going to pick 2 cases where both victims happened to be found in a suitcase. But that's where we're going with it. So we got lots of likes tonight. We had lots of fun. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you did like the content. We do go live daily, and I do usually post at least 1, sometimes 2 on the weekends. I'll do like 1 or 2 pre-recordeds for you guys. So yeah, and if you're into the ADHD crowd like we are, that's how we are around here, huh, Summer? Speaking of which, when I called the pharmacy the other day to ask for my medications, like they said, hold on, we don't know if we have them. And I was like thinking, I just switched pharmacies because of this medication problem. So when you said ADHD, that's what that made me think of, because all the Kims in the world. But yeah, no. And I do have the chat replay on. So if you guys ever want to watch the chat replays, you can. But I will be on tomorrow sometime to see you guys. And we'll be doing a members only live soon too. So probably do one next week. Early in the week. Don't forget to follow me over on TikTok at TitaniumBuilt, Twitter at Titanium_built, and of course, on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Bye guys. Have a good night.